afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. We are going to formally start with this 38th International Biannual Conference of the International Union for Land Value Taxation, Housing, Land and Social Inclusion Tax-Paying System to achieve this goal. Here with us today we have the Chair of the Economic Training Institute, Dr. Héctor Sandler, the Chair of the National Budget Association, Makón, the Executive Secretary of the International Public Budget Association, Eduardo Delle, and the Chair of the International Union for Land Value Taxation, Fernando, Scornik. We are now going to give the floor to Dr. Héctor Sandler. First, who am I speaking to? I should first address the Dean of our law school, who unfortunately cannot be with us at this very moment because she's chairing an event elsewhere which had been previously scheduled. As soon as she has finished with that activity, which is the presentation of a book on genocide, she will be joining us at this panel and address all of you in her capacity as school dean. Secondly, I would like to address the chair of the International Union for Land Taxation, Mr. Scornik, who's here on my right, and Dr. Makón, who is the chair of the SAP, Dr. Ville, chair of SIC, who are two institutions that organize this type of events and which are non-for-profit organizations, all of which have supported us and have allowed this event to be a reality so that we can enjoy these upcoming 4 days of work. Of course, in my speech I should address all of you present here today because you are professionals, young students, and it is important that I underscore your presence here today because of the quality of this event and its very purposes and goals. The agenda that we have prepared for this meeting deals with housing, land and social inclusion. This is the core matter of this meeting, and we are gathered here today to discuss the ways to achieve these objectives. I would like to note that any academic activity like this held at the Law School of Buenos Aires is important in and for itself as an academic event, and I would like to underscore that this is precisely that, an academic event, but it is also an academic event that discusses some social problems which are true social scourges and not only problems. I'm speaking of the problem of housing, of land, and of social inclusion. These three issues are the subject matter of different types of sciences which range from technical ones to social sciences which study them. But the one that is ultimately responsible for the current state of affairs in this field is law. It is the law which has changed throughout centuries. Mankind has taken as a right the manifestations of gods and something that was worth worshipping. As mankind evolved, there came a point in time, not so long ago, where that divine right was brought down to earth as a natural right. But in any case, these enjoy the privileged stance vis-à-vis the will of men. By the middle of this contemporary era, this natural right was renamed, and it was called rational law. We are in the age of reason. Of course, in all three cases where we are talking about divine law, natural law, or rational law, we would say, paraphrasing Homer, that men wrote what the voices from beyond would dictate to them, which was supposed to be fair and equitable. In the interim, this 1,000-year development in the early years of the modern times, that is in the 1600s, 1700s, after the destruction of the Roman Empire, and once we had only the bits and pieces of it, was that the empire had turned up into debris, villages were built onto them, and as a result a new agent appeared in the history of mankind. The gathering of these small towns and villages, as well as meeting places, grouped under the name of nation-states. We have a correlative factor, therefore. We have the onset in literature and in thinking of the fact that men should adapt the law to reason, which is a very powerful and driving force, and at the same time, concurrently with that, there rose that form of political organization called nation-state. And I would say that when back in 1804 the French Civil Code was enacted, there was supposedly a merger between the rational law and the legislative law. The French Civil Code, as well as the Argentinian Civil Code, seem to have coined the new form of law, rational law. This was not a major change in quantitative terms. It was the early years of the 19th century, which was ratified throughout the century until the enactment of the 1900 German Civil Code. Change may appear minor, but the variation has been significant. Rather than listening to the voice of gods or paying attention to reason, there was now a theological change, if you allow me to use that metaphor. God had been substituted by the state. Secondly, the ministers in the new religion would be the ones that would govern the state, and citizens would become the ones that would participate. This was hardly noticeable, but already in the 1930s, after World War I, and after the terrible period in the first half of the 20th century, there appeared the role of the totalitarian state, which is far worse than the absolutist one. The totalitarian state is the utmost example of a kind of omnipotent God that owners have to, that state rulers have to own, so that they can dictate at their own will without taking into account the interest and stake. The Second World War had to take place together with the genocide, which took place at the time and which was discovered later, for men to rethink everything and realize that it was necessary to give a new concept to this idea of law. And somehow at universities, at different courses, these returning to rational law with other criteria and other approaches had significant momentum. Along the road, in complementing and supplementing this picture, concurrently with that, a science had developed which the ancients were not aware of. As poet puts it, they engaged in prose without knowing it. The ancient thinkers were thinking in economic terms, but they were not aware of that. In the modern ages, a new science came to life, economic science. There were different areas of jurisdiction. The legal writers who sought justice, equality, freedom, as per proper rules, and the area of economists who, under a different criterion, tried to establish which was the economic order that would better apply to men. And in this exchange, in this tension, we have to acknowledge today that law was defeated and economic sciences was the one that had victory. Men are not ruled by proper law, but by the law given by the power of the state, taking into account economic interests. According to Karl Marx, they were the class interests, and I personally believe that Marx was right back in 1850. Today, I believe it is less than unarguable that it is the interests of the political state that in each and every occasion are highly protected. In this cultural mutation, which I'm describing briefly, but which I think gives purpose to this meeting, there's something very interesting. As economic science became founded, as was the case with the religion, with the Christian religion, which was based in the Holy Trinity, the economic science was based on three clear pillars, namely labor as a production agent, land as a natural resource, and savings applied to labor in order to increase production. Contemporary science has severed one of these pillars, one of these legs, and we therefore have a two-part economic science that speaks only of labor and capital. Land has disappeared as a pillar, and I'm not saying that it has disappeared from labor advertising. We have to analyze syllabuses of law and economy to understand that this factor in the social equation has been wiped away. It is under these conditions that we see and we provide a forward to this event. We are not coming here to discuss economic theory or the legal dogmatic science or historical account. We are coming here to ask ourselves and to ask the audience whether we can truly find a law that will ensure the benefits of individual rights, equal treatment and fraternity amongst men, and harmonize that with an economic science that ignores the production factor and a legal science which in turn accompanies that, ignoring these circumstances. This is amounting to a social drama. So this event, which is academic in nature and as I said, takes on a political tinge in the proper sense of the term, because men can be men because of the polis. There's nothing alien to their lives within or without the polis. Tell me how can we have a polis and I'll tell you what each person's individual lives will be. So ladies and gentlemen, I allow myself to formally open this event, underscoring the importance it has, not only in academic terms, because of the important number of authors who are going to speak about different topics, but it has a true political sense. It is important for citizens to think what we need to do so as to have laws that will serve that three-party element, which is what the French Revolution accounted for, that is fraternity, equality and freedom. Thank you.
Maybe our job, which is not widely known, has been focuses on researching how we can analyze budget, public spending, and we have never gone deep into government spending so far. The three most important variables are income, spending, and financing. Our expertise has always been to analyze public spending, and we have not gained experience in financing such public spending. So, when we were invited to act as sponsors to this meeting, and together with an international organizations such as the IU, the International Union for Land Value Taxation, we noticed that it was a very important cooperation for us also because under the scope of economic policies and international crisis that we're now undergoing in France, the USA, and the world at large, the subject of how to finance public spending is a strategic issue, especially considering the notion of philosophy being applied to the value of land, land which has not been created by man, but it is useful for man to acquire productivity and profitability. So the main purpose of this Congress, housing, land and social inclusion, a taxation system to achieve them, implies not only to raise additional funds, but also to fully comply with all the requirements that are necessary under the scope of the three branches of public finance. The redistribution in the field of government spending when you capture resources and public funds. So we are going to have a wonderful opportunity to hear more than 20 guest speakers who will analyze cases in point in the field of Argentina as well as in other regions of the world. So we'll be able to compare experiences. Therefore, I think that this is a luxury for us to be here with you. We want to appreciate the great effort made by our friend Héctor Sandler and also Fernando Scornik here present, who has always helped us develop all these efforts. So this will be a very important tool for promoting through different mass media of all the outcomes of this specific conference. All our members will have that information available. In our case, our association is made up of 300 individual members plus 50 institutional members, but we have a significant insertion in the social environment when we have to deal with analyzing public spending. We organize training courses and workshops. We entered into agreements with the School of Economics for postgraduate studies, management, business management, and performance management in the field of business in order to enhance budgetary techniques, planning techniques, government spending techniques. And in a very short time, we are going to add new topics concerning public financing and spending. So thank you very much for your participation here. We accepted to act as sponsors to this academic event of this sort and of this high level. We were fully persuaded of the fact that, owing to the high quality of this topic under discussion, through the most gifted guest speakers that are going to share with us their views and opinions, we would be able to draw very positive conclusions regarding a topic that is absolutely put to the table for discussion under the scope of the new economic developments worldwide. If we take into account the latest 2008 crisis, we have to bear in mind that new actors and players have emerged, new strategic alliances have been made, new processes have been developing all over the world. And on account of these latest developments, countries filled with long-standing history have seen emerging markets coming on the scene of new markets by requiring new foods, new technologies, and therefore we are revaluing, so to speak, a new factor of production, as Dr. Sandler has just mentioned, which is namely land. Land had been neglected by the economic theory of the latest time, but it has a unique weight and importance. So we firmly believe that this new world scheme based on the new worldly minds has made new players emerge, and one of these actors is this new resource, or not new resource,